Hi, I'm Bloody Doves, the creator of Battletech Advanced 36.2, and I'm here to talk to you about our newest patch, patch 16.0. Patch 16.0 introduces a lot of changes to the MechLab, and as you can see here, I have a lot of mechs with critical errors, and we're going to talk about what those are and how you can fix them, because you will have them too. But first, we're going to start with this pulverizer. So, some things have changed in 16.0. A real quick summary is quads have changed fairly dramatically, which is why all my quads are broken. Artemis and Apollo have changed fairly dramatically. The PPC capacitor has changed, and TTSs have changed and mostly been replaced. So we're going to talk about all that. The mech bay also has some other changes, such as a couple of new hardpoint types for certain kinds of weapons, and the filters in the actual MechLab itself have been adjusted somewhat. So we're going to talk about all that and go through it all. And we're going to start with the pulverizer, because the pulverizer has a bunch of problems. Let's see a refit. So right here, you can see there are some issues, and they involve ammunition. You can also see there's two pieces of depreciated gear in the head. So this top one is the cockpit one. This was Apollo. Apollo has now been changed to be something else. This was a TTS. This is also no longer a thing anymore. All the TTSs are depreciated and no longer function. So first of all, we have to remove those. That gives us some tonnage back, but that's okay. Now, Apollo, it's not working because I don't have the TTS. And you're going to ask, okay, if you don't have the Apollo item, what do you have? And the answer is that if you go to the equipment tab, there is a new filter here, this little chain link filter. And this chain link filter is the attachment filter. Attachments are a new type of gear in BTA that connect to weapons. So I'm going to drag the Apollo on here, and Apollo has been changed to a weapon attachment. So what happens is now my MRM30, if you look at the unit card right below the tonnage or right above the damage, it says Attachments Apollo FCS, which you can't see because it's under my camera. So you can see it better there. So it says Attachments Apollo FCS. What that means is that it has the Apollo attachment attached to this specific weapon. The attachment now is what makes MRMs able to take Apollo. And it works the same for Artemis as well. Artemis will attach to LRMs or SRMs, and it attaches to it and gives it the ability to use Artemis ammunition. So, come on, there we go. So, this is a little different. That means that all your mechs with Artemis and all your mechs with Apollo are going to be non-functional. You can't use that ammunition without the attachment anymore. The old cockpit item no longer works. You can have it equipped, it just doesn't do anything, and it won't let you use your ammunition. So you're going to need to get these new attachment FCSs. These are going to be fairly available. They're going to be available pretty widely in shops. So you shouldn't have too much issue getting them, though it will be random because you have to get them in stores. They will also be available in some faction stores. Apollo is the easiest one to acquire because it's in the Draconis Combine faction store. The Artemis FCS is in a couple of faction stores as well, as I believe, but it's also just available pretty widely in standard stores. So you're going to need to buy those. And notably, I'll show this off on an Artemis mech, but you need one attachment for every weapon system. If I have an MRM here with the attachment, and I have an MRM over here that doesn't, the MRM over here can't use Apollo. Notably, Apollo and Artemis are exclusionary. If you have Apollo on one of your mechs, on one of your MRMs on a mech, every MRM on that mech needs Apollo. Because your mech is either Apollo equipped or it is not. Period. And if you have Apollo, you can't use standard ammo, and if you have standard ammo, you can't use Apollo ammo. And that's the works the same for Artemis. If you're using Artemis on a mech, you have to use Artemis on all your launchers, and you can't use standard ammunition. Now, to counter that, Apollo and Artemis have been buffed. They are more powerful than they used to be. They ignore evasion, they have a lot of accuracy, and they have a clustering bonus, so they group together better. Well, that's it for Artemis. Apollo just does more damage. Apollo ignores 1 evasion, plus 2 accuracy, and does plus 1 damage per missile. So Apollo is very, very killy. So, there you go. That's how you fix Apollo. Notably, you'll also see over here in the attachment list, the PPC capacitor is now an attachment. It is no longer a stock item. I don't have this on any of my mechs to show you, but the PPC capacitor now attaches to PPCs. And you can see here it actually adjusts the damage. So here, I'll take this off. The enhanced air PPC does 68 damage and 40 heat normally. You attach the capacitor, And now it does 93 damage and 65 heat. It's plus 25 heat, plus 25 damage. You'll also notice that the enhanced ER PPC in the description will tell you it is compatible with weapon attachments. Which ones? The capacitor and the PPC FCS. Now, I don't have one of those in my save to show you, but the TTSs that I removed from up here, like the energy or missile TTSs, or the ballistic TTSs, those are gone. And they've been replaced with weapon-specific attachments that are specific to a weapon class. There are 13, ranging from LRM and SRM and laser and PPC, to artillery and tag, and thunderbolt, and periphery weapons, and, machine guns. There are a bunch of these, and they really run the gamut. They affect almost every weapon in BTA except for the flamers. Flamers are the big weapon category where they don't really have anything. Notably, MMLs also do not have a dedicated attachment. They just have Artemis. They don't have an FCS because they don't have an FCS. So that's something we can talk about in the future. But there you go. So the PPC capacitor attaches to the enhanced PPC. Now, someone might be asking, well, BD, what if you have two PPCs in a location? How does it know which one to attach to? So the capacitor, you'll see, the attachments have this little gear icon. You can click on this, and it will actually let you pick which weapon you want to attach to. So I'll double-click on the PPC, and now, if you mouse over this, the PPC's damage and heat have been changed. The enhanced ER PPCs are back to normal. Notably, it still says it's attached to the enhanced, but it's not. The damage is actually correct, and it's attached to the PPC as normal. If you want to switch it back, double-click there, and then suddenly the enhanced ER PPC has the upgraded damage and everything. Notably, the capacitor can actually be turned off in mission. These add fire modes that allow you to, use the effects, and the PPC capacitor specifically can be disabled. The Apollo and Artemis cannot really be disabled. Like, you can turn it off, but you won't be able to use the weapon because you don't have any ammo anymore. But the capacitor can be disabled, so if you don't want to use it, you can turn it off. It also has a jam chance. So, there's a reason to turn it off if you don't need it on. Anyway, that's the capacitors, and that's the Apollo. That's the new weapon attachment system. I'll show you an Artemis mech as well. The sharp-eyed among you also may have noticed that the weapon tab also has some new filters. It has this little star icon and this bomb. The battle armor's over here now. So, some weapons have been moved around, and there are actually a couple of new weapon types. So, artillery, bombs are now distinct things, and the support category, which was this, has been split into two filters because it was getting unwieldy. The standard support icon is now what I call physical support weapons. So, flamers, machine guns, grenade launchers, A-pods, stuff like that. Mag shots, I think, are in here too. Things that have some kind of physicality to them. Not lasers. Lasers have been moved into this new icon. This little starburst icon. They are the energy support weapons. So all the small lasers, the micro lasers, the tags, and the C3 Master have all been moved into this because this one category was getting very unwieldy. So I split them into two categories. However, let's talk about the new weapon types. So, for a long time, I've wanted to do this and make an artillery hardpoint. So, we have a new upgrade for the MechLab. The Mech Engineer, the mod that manages this, has been upgraded and allows us to do things like make new hardpoints. So, what I've done is I've made artillery a dedicated artillery hardpoint. So, the Sniper, the Thumper, the Long Tom, the Sniper, the Thumper, and the Long Tom cannons, the Arrow 4, and the Sirocco are all now a dedicated red-colored artillery hardpoint. They are distinct weapons. They are no longer ballistic, they are not missile, they are not energy, they are artillery. That means they do not benefit from anything that benefits ballistic or missile upgrades. So, for instance, the Sniper no longer benefits from Ballistic Master. The artillery no longer, the Arrow 4 no longer benefits from Missile Master. They are their own thing now. And so, there you go. The upside is that it makes these mechs much more distinct. So the Helopolis is now much more dedicated to being an artillery piece, because it has this unique artillery hardpoint that most things do not have. Most things don't have an artillery hardpoint. Now, every mech with one of these appropriate weapons has been modified to have the appropriate hardpoint. Some mechs have two of these hardpoints. There aren't many, but there are some mechs with two artillery hardpoints. And notably, the artillery hardpoint also means that I can do things that I couldn't do before, where I can now swap a sniper for an arrow 4 on the standard Helopolis, which you could not do before. So you actually have a little more flexibility. Additionally, the weapons that are on this hardpoint, like I said, are the Thumper, the Sniper, the Long Tom, and also the Thumper, the Sniper, and the Long Tom cannons, which are sawn-off shotgun type weapons that are very short range and much higher damage. I, again, don't have one in this save. But those weapons are also now much more available. The Long Tom cannon also didn't exist before. The Sniper and the Thumper cannons did, but they were on very hard to acquire mechs. The Thumper cannon was only on the Schwerer Gustav, which is a Franken mech you can get through an event, and the Sniper cannon was only on the Boomstick, which is the Helopolis hero mech that you can only get via random chance in Game World duels. So, yeah, those are now much more available, and they're a lot of fun to play with, so I do really recommend you pick them up when you see them and give them a try if you have a mech for them. They're definitely worth checking out. The ammunition is also its own color. Now you're probably wondering, BD, this tab used to contain mortars and bombards and the mech grenade launcher. Where did those go? Well, the mech grenade launcher is a support weapon and went over to the support category. And the mortars and bombards stayed in the ballistic category because they're really ballistic LRMs is what they are. They're not really true artillery. So they stayed on the ballistic hardpoint. So your mortar mechs and your bombard mechs and your mech grenade launcher mechs, they're all fine. They're on the hardpoints they used to be on. But if you have a sniper on something, odds are, unless it has an artillery hardpoint, you're going to have to replace it. Sorry. That's just something you're going to have to deal with. Now, the other new hardpoint, well, there's a handful of new hardpoints. One of the other new hardpoints is the bomb. So, the Screamer Lamb is a lamb that you can get from the Rim Collection. And it had missile weapons called bombs. Cluster Bomb, High-X Bomb, Infernal Bomb. These are one-shot weapons that do very high damage at relatively short range and can only be mounted on lambs. Because they're bombs. It makes sense. Lambs fly over them and drop bombs, right? Well, because they don't really behave like other weapons, they have gotten a new hardpoint. In addition, what's happened is that every single lamb in the game, all of them, have at least 2 bomb hardpoints, one in each torso. The Screamer has 6, because it's kind of the Screamer's thing. A couple of them have 4 or 5, but most of them have 2. So every lamb now has bombs. Additionally, the lambs have been broken out through a number of different faction stores. They're not all in the Rasselhag faction store anymore. In fact, it doesn't have any of them anymore. They've all been kind of scattered out through the rest of the Great Houses and Comstar and the Word of Blake and the Rim Collection and so on and so forth. And every store that sells a lamb also sells all 3 bomb types. High-X, Cluster, and Inferno. So these are now much more available and much more accessible, and you can actually put them on things and use them. This also heralds the beginning of what I hope to do, which is expanding the number of lamb variants that exist and expanding the number of bomb variants that exist. So these new hardpoints will have more weapons that you can put on them and have more types of stuff you can do and have more things going on. So keep your eye out for that. Bombs can only be put on lambs. Notably, important, with artillery can be put on an Omni-Mech. Bombs cannot be. Bombs are lamb restricted still. They're hardpoint restricted and they're mech type restricted. Which makes sense. Again, they're bombs. You can't really put them on an avatar, because what's the avatar gonna do? Throw it at them? With no hands? It doesn't make sense. So, you can't do that. So that's bombs. Now, I mentioned there's a couple other hardpoint types. Let me see if I can find the one for you. Here we go. So this is the Preda. This is a Innersphere Omni-Mech. You'll notice that the hardpoints are different. They're this little star icon. The Omni hardpoint, instead of having all the hardpoints and some orange numbers and being very confusing, now it's just this little star hardpoint. Omni hardpoints are different from battle mechs, such as flexibility and loadouts. Omni hardpoints are a special type of hardpoint, unique to Omni mechs, which allow mounting any battle mech weapon. Like I said, this does include artillery. So you can put artillery on the Omni hardpoint. I don't know why you put it on the Preda, because it doesn't really have the tonnage for it, but you could. Notably, like I said, bombs require actual hardpoints. So you can't actually put bombs on Omni-Mechs. But this makes the Omni-Mechs very much more clear about how many hardpoints they've actually got. Just a nice quality of life upgrade. The last 2 hardpoint types are The melee weapon hardpoint, which you'll see here, which is just a visual indicator for does this mech have a melee weapon, and if so, it has this little sword icon, and you can, see it there. We'll talk more about quads in a minute. And the last one, which is actually a pretty big balance change, is the battle armor hardpoint. Battle armor now have their own hardpoint, because battle armor weapons are weird and deserve to have their own hardpoint. Notably, it means that every battle armor weapon, including things like the support PPC, now are battle armor hardpoints. So you can actually mix this up. So things like the Void battle armor no longer have energy hardpoints. They have battle armor hardpoints for the support PPC, stuff like that. So what this means is that battle armor weapons are now battle armor weapons. They're not support weapons anymore, which means that things like Knife Fighter no longer apply. So if you were really relying on Knife Fighter for your battle armor builds, tough luck, that's no longer a viable strategy. You're gonna have to change it. Again, sorry, but that's not a thing anymore you can do. My bad. So, there you go. Otherwise, battle armor are pretty much as you see them. Now, let's go show you an Artemis mech, just to demonstrate the attachments again, because I know some people will want to see that. So, I now have four LRM-10s, so they each need Artemis. And now, as long as I have even one without it, this one can't actually use the Artemis ammo, so it needs the Artemis 4. And there you go. That's how you're gonna have to refit your Artemis designs. Again, sorry, but this is much more accurate to the way tabletop actually plays and the way the game is kind of meant to be. So, there you go. There's your attachments for the day. Now, finally, the rest of these mechs, Artemis, this Yeoman also has Artemis. MMLs, by the way, can take Artemis. The Screamer has missing weight. The rest of these mechs with the red icon are all quad mechs. And quad mechs have a very specific issue that you're going to need to fix. Let me show you. Okay. Let's try that again. So you're going to notice the legs have some things going on that definitely don't need to be the way they are right now. The front legs have 8 actuators, and the hind legs have the hind actuators, which need to actually say depreciated. These will all say depreciated. I forgot about these. Basically what's going on is that quads have changed. Before, on older BTA patches, the front legs on quads were arms. So they had arm actuators. So the leg actuators they had were actually arm actuators, and it kind of cheated, because that's the way we kind of had to cheat to get it to work. That is no longer the case, and quads now just have real hind, upper, lower, and foot actuators, which are actual leg actuators. So you can put, like, kick actuators on the front legs now. So what happened is all these special actuators have been fixed. So now, all you have to do, if you have quads in your mech bay, you're just going to have to remove all these actuators from them, because all your quads are going to look like this. You're just going to have to go through and remove all of these now depreciated actuators. You can just sell them. They don't do anything. Just sell anything labeled depreciated, just sell it. It'll give you a small amount of cash and just get it out of your mech bay. And then your quad will be functional again, because now you see there's no errors. It's a little annoying, but it's better than making the save break. And now you can just put leg actuators on them. I don't think I have any. Yeah, I don't have any. Yeah, I don't actually have any leg actuators, so we're also going to talk about these two actuators here in a minute. So, that's how you fix your quads. Now, finally, there is one last actuator change to discuss, and it's actually related to OmniMechs. So, on old BTA, there were the OmniMech actuators. The Omni lower and the Omni hand. Excuse me. That was something that was done in the early days of BTA for verisimilitude, but it didn't really serve a purpose, and it didn't really make any sense. So it's been changed. So now, OmniMechs just take standard lower and hand actuators, which means you might see a situation like I have on the Devo, where you have those actuators fixed on your mech, and if you do have them fixed to your mech, you're going to need to store and re-ready it to dig them to fix it. It's a very minor issue, but it's a thing that you may want to consider, because like the mech still functions. It's still drop legal and everything, and you can still use it. But if this is a thing that bothers you, you will have to just store the mech and re-ready the mech, and everything will be fine. But that's the thing you need to keep track. If you have Omni mechs with those Omni actuators, you'll just have to replace them with standard lower arm and hand actuators. Okay, that one can't be used. Wait, no. Oh, right, because of those actuators. Right, never mind. That's just me being silly. These actuators and these actuators are exclusionary. Because I have these on here, I can't use the lower arms. That's fine. So, you'll just have to replace these. No big deal. If you have them fixed to the mech like the Diva does, you'll just have to store the mech and re-ready it. Again, not a big problem, but a thing you should be aware of. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the mech bay. I know it's a lot of changes. I know it's a lot of adjustments, but it'll be... It's a big upgrade, and there's going to be a lot of cool things that we can do in the future with things like weapon attachments that will be a huge, huge upgrade for the MechLab. So I know it's going to be a lot of work to get your guys updated, but you should be able to get them updated just fine. With that, that's all I got. If you have any questions, feel free to come over to Discord or leave a comment on the video, and I'll be sure to get to it as soon as I can. So with that, bid you all a good one. Everyone have a great day. I will see you on the battlefield. Bye-bye, folks.